Welcome back to the Worst Is Yet to Come podcast. I'm Andrew, and I'm joined with my co-host Harry.
What's up, man?
Hey, man. So this is a little bit of a milestone for us. This is our 10th episode, and it's also the third and final episode in our little mini series about George Washington. So we're really looking forward to this. And since you're predominantly the expert on the subject, buddy, I'll let you start us off with this and kind of keep the ball going.
All right, cool. So to recap, we left off with the victory in the Revolutionary War. Washington beat Cornwallis, Treaty of Paris, and that was 1781. Yorktown was in 1781. Treaty of Paris was 1783. There was a little bit of a intermediary period for Washington after that. So 1783 was when the Treaty of Paris was signed. In those interim years, the United States had a system of government that was based around the Articles of Confederation, which I'm just going to summarize that a little bit. Essentially, it was the document that kind of established our government before the Constitution, and the Articles of Confederation was it was bad. It wasn't effective at all. Under the Articles of Confederation, the United States didn't have a president. It had no executive really, and there was just the Congress of the Confederation, and the president of the Congress essentially acted like a president essentially, but it was just really ineffective. It couldn't levy taxes. All the states were uh, doing their own thing, currency wise and monetarily wise, and they had their own debt, and it was really messed up. There was no standing army. Um, it was really ineffective. So when it came time to do the Constitution, with the constitutional conventions and everything like that, it was kind of unilaterally recognized that no, there needs to be an executive, and that under the new Constitution, the three primary branches of the government, the executive, judicial, and legislative, will be set in stone. There'll be these system of checks and balances in place that keep all of the branches of government from becoming too powerful. That way there can be no dictator, and that Congress can't be a dictator, and that the Supreme Court can't be a dictator, and the president can't be a dictator. Um, so Washington, because based purely on that leads us to where Washington came in. He, having kind of been the hero of the Revolutionary War and the most famous man in the colonies at the time, and now the states. So Washington was just universally known as the hero of the revolution. And so when it came time to ask who was going to be the president, everyone just kind of assumed oh, you just give it to Washington. And he again took it the same kind of way of that he took the commander in chief role of the Continental Army, oh, I'm humble to accept this, and I'm below the office, or you know what I mean. Um, so he was unanimously elected president in 1789, becoming the first president of the United States of America. And it's funny, at the time under the system, there was no system of a running mate, like a vice president or whatever. So what happened was the guy that lost or had the second most electoral votes was John Adams, and he was the vice president. The guy that lost was the vice president.
Kind of funny.
And it was like that even up until I forget which president they stopped doing it at, but I think even up to Lincoln, because
Really?
the president after Lincoln was was it Jackson? Which one? Sorry, I was looking that up.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
Andrew
don't know.
Johnson. No, sorry, I was looking it up. It was the Andrew Johnson. Yeah, so Andrew Johnson was the president after Lincoln, and that was Lincoln's vice president. So he had lost, but he was a Democrat. So after like Lincoln had like done all this shit and like done all this good shit to like, be like, oh, we need to make it to where like the southern states just like can't essentially institute slavery or like treat African Americans like dog shit anymore. Like Andrew Johnson was like, yeah, we're not gonna do any of that shit anymore. So like all the good shit like Lincoln did, like Andrew Johnson was like, oh yeah, we're not gonna do any of that. So like that was the system in place. So the like when the presidency was first established, was that like the loser would be the vice president. It's kind of weird, kind of dumb. But John Adams was the vice president, and it's funny. Washington was the first and as of yet only president in the United States history to not be a member of a political party. Um, which I know we talked about before. Washington like famously um, thought that they would like undermine the sovereignty of the United States. Like he would like warn everyone of like, oh, political parties are real bad. And in his farewell address, I'm going to read a bigger portion of his farewell address later, but to close out the podcast. But I wanted to read a little snippet here where he talks about political parties in his farewell address. And it's kind of like a warning to the people. It says, however, political parties may now and then answer popular ends. They're likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion. So he's kind of like saying, political parties can serve a purpose in, for instance, like, bringing into like monarchy and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he's also saying, but it gets to a point where, cunning, ambitious, and, morally compromised men can, undermine the authority of those political parties, subvert the power of the people, and, obtain power within the government and just kind of like fuck everything up.
Well, it's kind of funny when we talk about how he is like anti-party, right? So this kind of ties into what I talked about earlier about like the full like Freemasonry thing. Is he was anti-party, but he was an active Mason, okay? And when he was sworn in as president, he used a Bible that's provided by the local like Mason lodge, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny because he's anti-party, but he's part of essentially a fraternity for
Yeah. A club, yeah, like a social club.
Yeah, a social club. Yeah. Where there is a lot of political power and connections being used through it. So I think it's a little, I don't know if it's hypocritical or just it's kind of like I don't know, a parallel maybe to like a party, but it serves another purpose.
Yeah, well, I think mostly those were just like I think those were just seen as like social clubs for wealthy or like well-to-do people.
Yeah.
And I think back then, like, because back then it was more common of like, this idea of like, oh, wealthy people are all like involved in politics and shit. Like, yeah, like not really. Like even back then, it was like there wasn't this really system of like back in the day of like, oh, you like donate money for this like campaign like that like wasn't a fucking thing back then.
No, I mean
like that just didn't happen. It just like didn't happen back then. So like they're really like okay, the social clubs. It's also like what do you mean? Like it's the aristocracy. Like if that's any kind of like thing of it, it's like like they're together in the point that like their interests converge. But beyond that, it's like, I mean, because like even see like members of like those fraternal orders, like they could disagree politically, and like they did, like Jefferson and what was it, Hamilton? Like they fucking hated each other, and their two political parties like would begin like the first party system, like the Jeffersonian Republicans and the Democratic Republicans. But I think back then, like nowadays, you get the idea of like, oh, they're like into some secret shit. But it's like back then, I think it was just like for rich dudes who are like fucking bored to like get away from their
but
property.
You have those social connections of who knows who kind of thing.
Yeah, like the networking.
But it comes into play. I'm not saying it's like an established like, oh, you're part of society, do what we're saying thing. It's more of like, oh, well, I know this guy. He's a fellow Mason, so maybe I'll kind of show a
Yeah.
little bit of favor to him or something,
Yeah, but I'm saying like
which is proven in Washington's past.
yeah, what I'm saying like at the time those like that tradition of like that like established political tradition like to be corrupted had yet to be founded. You know what I mean? It's
Oh
like
yeah,
that now. It's like that now.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But like at the time, it was like still new. And I'm not saying it didn't happen.
Like, give it time. People will corrupt everything.
Yeah. Um. I thought this was funny. I wanted to mention this. He preferred the title of Mr. President. Because that's like a really at the time that was like a really like informal like title. Like you could be like the like local government guy and you'd be called the president because you're like presiding over something. And he preferred the title of Mr. President. But like the Senate, they proposed two other titles, which I thought was hilarious. And like in it, like a lesser man, imagine him being in this position. So the other options were His Excellency and His Highness the President.
Can you imagine someone now saying
Oh,
his
yo,
Excellency
fuck,
Joe Biden or like His Excellency Donald Trump? Like, come on, that'd be a
God.
joke.
Or His Highness Joe Biden.
His Highness the
His Highness the President Joe Biden. Fuck.
that'd be
God, dude.
bad. No,
Um,
I'm not trashing Joe Biden, but I'm just saying, just whoever the president is, it'd be fucking ridiculous because we know those
yeah,
people how they're
anybody,
today.
like
Yeah,
anybody, bro. Like, uh, yeah, like
sorry.
like I said, like dude, any lesser man than Washington
Yeah,
would have been like, you will refer to me as His Highness the President. Fuck,
His Highness
yeah,
Bill
dude.
Clinton,
Fuck, like, God,
fucking Richard Nixon, His
Jesus,
Highness.
Jesus. His
Those-
Highness the President, Tricky Dick. Fuck.
Oh, that's so bad.
So uh, he was credited with establishing like a ton of these like executive precedents, like that are this is normal now. Washington started all of these like traditions or like precedent of he started in the inaugural address, like you were talking about, the swearing on the Bible.
Well, there's another
Um,
point I want to add just quickly about that is he had it open to Genesis 49 during the ceremony. Apparently it was random, but experts think he purposely did it, and that's actually like a blessing from Jacob. And he says, gather around so I can tell you what will happen to you in the days to come, and then it continues on with the blessing. So people think George Washington opened it to that page and use that because it kind of goes along with what he's doing. Gather around, I can tell you what's going to happen in the days to come.
yeah,
Oh, that was pretty interesting.
yeah. Um, okay, so he did the inaugural address. He sent letters to Congress saying like, "What's up?" And like the congressional like addresses and stuff, like the State of the Union, shit like that. He also started the tradition of like appointing a cabinet system. It's like the thing that we have now, like Secretary of the Treasury, so all that shit. He started it, and his cabinet was real small because we don't have all of the stuff we have now. But so his cabinet was 4 members, and it was his cabinet was Thomas Jefferson was the Secretary of State, Henry Knox as Secretary of War, which if you remember, Henry Knox was the guy that got him his cannons and shit in the Revolutionary War. Um, Alexander Hamilton was the Secretary of the Treasury, and Edmund Randolph was the Attorney General, which the office of Attorney General and the Supreme Court, which is another thing Washington or was passed during Washington's presidency, the Judiciary Act of 1789, I think it was, where it established the office of the Attorney General of the United States and the Supreme Court of the United States, and uh, Washington appointed the first 6 justices of the Supreme Court.
Pretty important.
Yeah,
Well, I think it's a pretty important thing because the Americans, their main issues, right, were caused from issues with like laws and courts. So one of the things they do is establish what they find to be a fair and effective way of judging and passing laws and dealing with these kind of things compared to
Yeah.
the British system, which where they felt unjustly, under the yoke of, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty cool that he set it up right away.
Yeah. Um. Oh, this is a thing that we both mentioned when we were doing the research. He made November 26th, 1789, a day of Thanksgiving and a day to promote national unity because, again, at the time, like I was saying, Articles of Confederation had it to where like all of the states were like individual, and it was a confederation of states that made up the United States rather than a large central government that is made up of smaller states. You know what I mean?
Well, because they're still trying to figure out what system
Right.
of
They're still
government
trying
they're
to
going
figure
to
it
use.
out. And so to promote like national unity, he made like November 26th, 1789, a day of Thanksgiving, and was like, oh, we should all promote national unity. Like this is one country. We're a country. You know, what I mean, we're not like Virginians or Carolinians or whatever. It's like we're Americans first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and he said, about that, he said, it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, to be grateful for His benefits, and humbly to implore His protection and favor. And he spent that day. It's funny we spent that day eating and shit, but he spent that day fasting and actually visiting debtors in prison, and he took them like food and beer and shit, which I thought was real cool.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Imagine you're sitting in jail because you didn't pay some shit back. Fucking George Washington with fucking beer.
Jeez.
God. Um. So, as I said, Alexander Hamilton was his Secretary of the Treasury. Like Washington's presidency was like I know it's probably gonna be like a little bit boring for like a lot of like the listeners, but like Washington's like presidency was actually like pretty chill. Like he did all his like real cool shit kind of before. Like the presidency was essentially like all right, it's down to business. You know what I mean? Like that's why like a ton of this stuff is like, oh, he established like this, and then he
Well,
appointed
yeah.
these people. The
When you
government,
look
this
at like,
shit didn't exist.
well,
Like,
yeah. Well, he set up a lot of stuff, but a lot of people look back on his presidency and they're like, yeah, like he didn't do anything like too exciting or crazy, but like he set the precedence. He set the standard. He
yeah,
established stuff, but like in the grand scheme of things, like it wasn't a lot of crazy stuff. All the crazy stuff happened before.
right. And that was the thing. It was that all of the insane shit that happened, like Washington had enough crazy shit for like multiple people's lifetimes.
Yeah, that's what we
Like,
were saying when we were doing this episode. We're like, we got to try to make it like interesting.
yeah. And then the second episode is probably the best one because it's all this like war stuff and like, oh, it's all cool. And then you get to this one and he's like appointing judges and shit. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Like,
legislation
yeah,
appointments.
yeah. Um,
But I mean, it's all still important.
yeah, obviously. I mean, we wouldn't be like the United States would now, like without all these like precedents that he set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so he appointed Alexander Hamilton the Secretary of the Treasury, and Alexander Hamilton was he would become like, Federalist, what would be like the Federalist Party, or like the people that want like a strong federal government. So, uh, under that, so like at the time I was saying like the Articles of Confederation, all the separate states, they all had their own individual debts, and Washington supported Hamilton's economic policies, like whereby the federal government would assume all of the state debts, like
So,
collectively,
yeah.
and would agree to pay those back. Um, and under Hamilton, the first Bank of the United States was established, the United States Mint was established, and the United States Customs Service was established that would like collect tariffs and that kind of thing.
It's really important because you need to have that debt so you can have credit.
Right. So like all the like it's like again, so like I know it's like boring, but it's like all this stuff is like no, the country was like severely indebted and shit, and like all of these things would help the country to get themselves out of that debt. You know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah, because they kept taking loans out from like the Dutch, the French.
Yeah,
Like while the war was going
Spanish.
on, they had
Yeah,
representatives in Europe like getting loans, and as the tides turned to war, they would get more and more loans from more and more governments, right?
yeah. So like under all this stuff is would allow us to like collectively say, okay, the debt is the federal government's debt. We're like printing our own money now, like national currency, and we're establishing a customs service that will enforce these tariffs. So like when a ship would come, like a British ship would come into harbor, they would, have to pay, to the customs office. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, like based on what they would bring in, they have to pay like X number of, money to the customs service. Um, so also under Washington, the government raised a tax on whiskey, which had become like really prevalent. Whiskey was popular at the time. Um, Other than just it being whiskey.
It still is now, buddy.
Yeah, it was popular at the time because a lot of places like out on the frontier couldn't get like a viable like water source.
Yeah.
Um, so beer was really common to drink, but beer you would have to at the time beer that you would make you would have to consume fairly quickly, and it couldn't be transported very well, or like it would spoil before we get to its destination. You know what I mean?
Really? I didn't
Essentially,
know that.
yeah. Essentially, at the time, it would just turn into like molded water.
Oh.
And like it's helped now with like preservatives and like it's bottled. You know what I mean? Like back then, it was like poorly done. So whiskey and rum was like really popular, but the rum manufacturing was interrupted because of the Revolutionary War, and it's hard to get cane sugar
Yeah, yeah.
to make the rum. So whiskey became very, very, very popular because it would stay preserved, so it was easily portable,
Yeah.
and it was uh, easy to make, so that because you didn't need the cane sugar. Um, but this tax on whiskey, a lot of these like whiskey manufacturers said like, oh, this is the exact same kind of thing that a lot of these guys were veterans of the Revolutionary War, and they were saying this is the same kind of thing where we were just fighting a war against is like taxation without, they thought adequate representation. You know what I mean? Because at the time, that system of, state legislatures, which, worked their way up to, they essentially looked at it as taxation without representation. Um, and so when it came down to it, there were 600. Um, it was mainly in Pennsylvania where this was happening, and Pennsylvania and Kentucky. And so in Pennsylvania, the there was like 600 rebels in Pennsylvania, like mustered to protect against tax collection. They actually like took like tax collectors like hostage and stuff like that, and attacked like tax collectors' homes and stuff. Um, and Washington raised an army of 13,000 to combat these 600 rebels.
Wow.
And the rebels were just like, "Yeah, all right, we'll go home." And like there wasn't like a fight. Like, um, I think in the entire like little conflict, it was like less than a dozen people died or something, and it was all because of like assaults that got out of hand or like accidents or something. But that kind of like solidified like like, oh, okay, the federal government like can because there was all these like questions of like, oh, can the federal government tax, and like like how would they do so, and like can the federal government like mount like a military and like all that shit, and it's like yes.
What year
uh
was that?
the Whiskey Rebellion, I
Yeah.
believe it was 1791.
Okay. Okay.
um well, why are you just asking?
Well, I'm just trying to get a timeline going in my head of like when this kind of things happened in relations, like when he died.
Yeah, so that was 1791. I think that whole whiskey thing was like 1791 to 1794. Like it was just like on and off, like kind of like, oh, we're trying to get those guys to like pay taxes.
Yeah. Okay.
And it that like the confrontation like of the meeting or whatever like happened in like 1794. Like the the whiskey manufacturers had been like saying like, oh no, we're not going to do that, and like since 1791, and then it came to a head in 1794.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, sorry, trying to find where I was in our notes. Okay, so the after that also the government also again to combat like the high debt and also at the time the trade that the United States had with Britain was like heavily favored in Britain's favor. Um, and then like there wasn't really anything we could do about it. Because we weren't there wasn't a like united like tariff system because again all the states had different tariffs because the Articles of Confederation was ineffective at uniting the governments and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so when the Constitution, kind of united all of those into like a single centralized federal government, we were actually able to finally say, okay, England, France, Spain, these are the taxes on these goods. This is what it costs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it kind of leveled out and made it more even keeled rather than be dominated by those other powers. And again, all of these is like measures were like taken to like help tackle the debt, the insane debt that the states had. Um, uh, and to that same point, at the same time, the Barbary states, those like North African,
Yeah.
the Barbary
Yeah.
states, the North African Barbary states were like essentially like pirate republics kind of, and they would like just attack like any merchant ships. And so like the United States merchant fleet was getting like attacked regularly like Barbary pirates, and Washington, signed the U.S. Navy Act in 1794, which founded the U.S. Navy to like commission ships to help protect the U.S. merchant fleets.
America eventually went to war in with the
Yeah, the
Barbary pirates,
Barbary,
and
yeah,
there's a whole history with the Marine Corps going over there with the Navy and fighting them.
yeah, the Barbary Wars.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
pretty interesting.
that was like 1801 to 1805 was the first Barbary War, and the second one was 1815. The second one lasted for like 3 days or something. Um, but yeah, um, but that was after Washington's. That kind of came to a head later on because we had the Navy protecting, but then it just kind of kept being an issue until we finally had to address it with like a full-on war in 1801 under Adams, I think it was. Then he also during his presidency, Vermont, Kentucky, and Tennessee all became states.
Oh, okay.
So that's cool. Um, he established this, like I was saying, he established the Supreme Court and appointed the first justices, the first Supreme Court justice, the actual like Supreme Justice was, I think it was John Jay. Um, the guy would sign like the Jay Treaty and help like make the tariffs more even keel between the United States and Britain.
Yeah.
Part of the Jay Treaty was that me and you were talking about before the podcast started, but part of the Jay Treaty was that the U.S. government would like compensate pre-Revolutionary War like merchants and like loyalists who had lost their property and stuff.
It's pretty nice because I mean the people suffered a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean it's a nice, but I not too sure actually how much that shit was paid out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe the gesture was nice, but in reality, yeah, not sure how much.
Yeah, because I know like even like like when a lot of the loyalists like went to Canada, they were like promised like equal compensation for like the stuff they owned, and like that just like never happened on that.
Yeah,
It wasn't like they did get something, but if you own like 500 acres, they would be like, well, here's like 200. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, actually, a little tangent here. If you go to Prince Edward County in like not southern Ontario, but kind of close to where I live near Ottawa, they call it the Loyalist County, and it's a really beautiful place. They got some nice beaches. There's a provincial park. There's Sandbanks Provincial Park with beautiful beaches, just like being down south. And there's a lot of farmlands and vineyards there, which is pretty interesting. It's a popular wine area. So just
Ooh.
whenever I think of Loyalist, I just think of Prince Edward County because it's called the Loyalist County, and it's just so beautiful. I love going there.
Yeah, that is funny. But like, because I would assume like it's just a ton, like just an influx of like loyalists, and it's just okay,
Yeah.
like we'll just
It
live
was
here now.
Let's say, yeah, shortly after the Revolutionary War, the Crown made land grants to some of the earliest Empire loyalists to settle in this area of Ontario. They're compensated for lost properties. There's consisted of 3 townships that were named after King George III's daughters. They even set up a militia unit, which has been around. I know they got a big history in World War II, the Hasty Peas. They're now a reserve unit. They fought in the Italian campaign with the Canadian Army, and so yeah, there's a lot of history, for loyalists too, which is something we can't forget.
Yeah. Yeah. Yo, we should do a fucking
Should do an episode on
do an app on the fucking
loyalists.
hasty peas, dog. Fine.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah. Put it in the fucking thing. Um. Okay. Sorry, trying to find where I was.
And or I got a little distracted.
No, dude, it's fucking. Like, I think that I wish that was something that they talked about more. Is like, nah, if you were a loyalist, like, it was actually like super shitty. Like,
Yeah,
colonists like took all your shit. Someone was like, nah, fuck you, kick you out of your house and shit. Like, just took all your shit.
yeah.
Um. Yeah, it was kind of dog shit.
I mean, usually it's the civilians that see the worst side of war.
Yeah,
So
shouldn't have been standing there. Oh, fuck.
it's bad. It's really bad.
Well, I mean, okay. Oh, so he also like signed in the Naturalization Act of 1789, which laid out like determined like what is a citizen of the United States, because also that just it's insane that like wasn't defined yet. Like as you were saying before, also too like in the War of 1812, like that's like another thing of like it was like there was no precedent of like what makes you a United States citizen,
Yeah. So
and like so the British would like you're. I'll just let you explain it because
well, yeah.
you
So
you
like
explained it.
So prior to the War of 1812, right? British ships would kind of like go in to stop American ships and be like, "Hey, you're an American, like you're actually born in the UK, so we're gonna press gang you into the Royal Navy." And they would say, "No, I'm an American citizen because George Washington, he created citizenship." They said, "Nah, man, you were born in England. You're a citizen of the Empire. You got to be on the Royal Navy." And then that was a big contention, like big issue that started the War of 1812 was like the British Navy just stealing American citizens, saying that they were British, and it just
Fuck,
forced them into the Navy.
God.
And it was one of those things where it's like, you got to join, you're gonna get flogged.
I mean, to be fair, Britain had like always done that
Yeah,
with their citizens, like to their navy, because
yeah, they just go into random ports, rip people
damn,
out.
shocker, no one wants to be on a fucking ship in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
Damn, that's crazy.
I'd rather get like dysentery in the peninsula with Wellington than be on a ship.
Yeah, fuck that. Um, so like pretty much like that's it in terms of like I mean there was like the Northwest like Indian War that like Washington that like the United States fought against it was like one of the various like Indian wars. It was like the Indians were in an area and we're like, hey, we want that land, and then the Indians were like, no, and then also like Canada was like, no, like the province of Quebec and the province of Lower Canada at the time, they're like, no, and then
Yeah,
we just were like, all right, and we just went to war like with the Indians officially, not really unofficially with Lower Canada and the province of Quebec unofficially. Um, And
That
then
was the Northwest Indian
yeah,
War.
yeah, and then we just like won it, kick the Indians out. Um,
Thanks.
sorry. Hashtag sorry.
It was yeah, it was the Iroquois,
Yeah, the Northwest like
Shawnee, and the
Confederacy or whatever.
Cherokee. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was all the Ohio Valley or Ohio
Yeah.
River Valley, which is an
Yeah.
important thing prior to the war.
Yeah, we say
Even further
Northwest,
than,
but it was like now it's like Midwest, like
yeah.
over there. Um, but and like Washington didn't oversee that. Like he personally led the Whiskey Rebellion, like the force that like took down the Whiskey Rebellion, but he didn't lead the force that like oversaw the Northwest Indian War. Um, but I mean, other than that, like his presidency was like honestly like relatively uneventful. Um, and then until like the end of it, in which he like ceded power, which like at the time like just did not happen. Um, they usually had it until they like died.
Oh, um, sorry, I'm a little off. I'm looking at some notes here, and
Oh yeah, you had a couple things you want to mention.
well, no, I'm just saying about this like Northwest Indian War. The some of the people that fought are kind of like relatives and kind of mixed in with my tribe, the Ojibwe.
Bruce.
So my ancestors might have possibly been involved in that.
All right.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. That's something I think we should really talk about is like some native history stuff. I think it'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's cool. Uh I hope none of them were killed shittily. That would suck.
Yeah. Well, the Ojibwe were kind of known for like burning people and like
Oh,
doing
then
some
fuck
really
them.
terrible,
Then fuck them. Then fuck them.
doing some really terrible things. Like, yeah, they're known for like burning people alive and like skinning them and stuff. I don't quote me on it, but I've read it somewhere. So there's some pretty interesting things going on there.
Well, I mean, just war before 2000.
Yeah,
Not very chill. It was not very cash money.
yeah, it's
Kind of shitty.
extremely terrible.
I mean, but also there's also like a thing of like it's like oh yeah, it helped the United States be a thing. It's also like yeah, but it's not your land, dog. Like we're just gonna skin you alive, homie. Like fuck, dude. Like all right, I guess.
I think the getting burnt is probably worse.
Dog, I don't know. Just fuck that.
Dude, getting
Like shoot me with the
Joan of
fucking
Arc, getting Joan of Arc,
fuck,
man.
dude. Shoot me the fucking arrow, dude. Fuck either of those.
Yeah.
Fuck, just kill me the fucking arrow, dog. Jeez.
Like the guy from Last Mohicans, just eat yourself off a cliff.
You know, I've never seen that movie.
Dude, it's a really good movie.
Is it?
Yeah, it's got some good French Indian War scenes.
I fucking love Daniel Day-Lewis. I need to watch it.
Yeah, dude, that's a good movie. We'll have to watch it and talk about it.
God, tangent. Oh, fuck. But no, so like, it literally his presidency was like pretty uneventful, other than like the things mentioned.
But I
like,
think it's kind of a good thing though. It just kind of shows stability.
Yeah,
really.
like uneventful in terms of like, oh damn, there's like wars and shit. Like, nah, like it was kind of good that there was no giant war at the time because, like, from the stuff we mentioned, like America was still defining itself. Like it didn't in the form that it does now. It didn't even exist at the time. Like even after we defeated the British and like we were, the United States, like we still didn't really exist until Washington's like presidency. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of cool that he helped to define some of the stuff that like still happens now. Like it's really honestly kind of cool and shows like his like legacy and all that. But so he ceded power in like 1797, which I said like that just like didn't happen back then. Like usually if you're in power back then, like you stayed in power until you died or you were usurped or something like that. But he was just like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. So that was 1797. John Adams became president. Um, and uh, he passed away on December 14th, 1799, after he went out to like go check his like farm and stuff. And his wife was like, you were saying his wife was like, "Hey, put on a coat. It's cold." And he's like, "Ah, I ain't no bitch." And then he like got sick and fucking died.
Yeah, it's
Fuck.
honestly one of those like, yeah, I don't need a coat, Martha, like chill, and then he straight up got sick.
Good God. Just imagine fucking Martha Washington fucking being like, "I bet you wish you'd put on the fucking coat now, huh?" God.
Yeah.
Washington's like, "Don't bury me longer than 3 days after I'm dead." As well. Oh, fucking dies. Jesus.
He was inspecting his farm on horseback, and he returned late and had dinner with some guests, and he got a sore throat the next day. But he got some. He was well enough to mark some trees for cutting, and then he complained of chest congestion, and then he awoke to an inflamed throat, difficulty breathing, and then they did a bunch of bloodletting, which is completely useless. And then hours
Fuck
later, he died.
idiots. Like, oh, I'm sick. Like, oh, make me bleed, dog. Fucking
So
stupid.
they think he had a tonsil infection, pretty much, which is like fever, sore throat, trouble opening your mouth, your voice gets all
Damn, he just needed
messed
his
up.
fucking tonsils taken out.
Well, it has something to do with an infection. It's called quinsy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like a very 18th century disease. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, well, they say his death came more swiftly than expected. So,
Yeah.
it's
Um,
kind of a shitty way to go out for like such a great man, but I mean,
yeah. Dude, I've been to his like the crypt thing at Mount Vernon.
yeah.
Dude, Mount Vernon, you gotta go, dog.
Yeah, I
It,
want to go.
bro, it looks tight as fuck. It's cool as shit.
Dude,
You know that.
no, I think it's Shane Gillis when he's talking his little
Oh,
comedy skit about the slave
fuck.
quarters.
God.
Dude,
God, dude.
I can't not think of Mount Vernon now without thinking when I'm talking about that.
Jeez. Like, bro, you know that big ass river? Like, you'll hear like if you like if anyone's like ever like looked into like American history, like you'll know, or like you're familiar with the Washington D.C. area, like you'll be familiar with the Potomac River.
Yep.
Grant or not Grant, yeah, Grant in the Civil War, he was the leader of the Army of the Potomac. Um, but like the Potomac River is like a big river up by like D.C. in that area. Mount Vernon is like on the Potomac, and like you like the front of the house is like has this like big circle drive. You just imagine like fucking carriages and shit walk riding up to it.
Yeah.
And you go into like the back, it's got like a big back porch with like these big like fucking columns and shit. And then like you look out and like the yard, the yard like slopes down, and then it's the Potomac River right there. The whole giant fucking thing. Like I didn't know. Like you can't tell from the looking at the front. The house is so fucking big.
Yeah.
You can't tell what's behind it. So like you walk outside and I was like, holy shit. Like it like honestly like looks really like beautiful.
Yeah.
Is like you walk out and there's just like really scenic view of the Potomac River. You're like, Jesus. Like you can imagine like back when he built all that shit, like it was just nothing but like countryside that you could see probably.
Mhm.
It was really nice looking, honestly. Um, you should go. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Yeah, there's a couple of places I want to go in the States. There's actually something kind of a little thing I like to talk about. It's so essentially Washington's like military officers created like a fraternity named after him, essentially. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's called the Society of Cincinnati, which is where the city got its name from. But
Yeah.
essentially, the society is named after Lucius Quintus Cincinnatus, who essentially left his farm to accept his term as Roman consul, and then he served as like temporary dictator of ancient Rome, like this is like Republic era, and he kind of like assumed the role like of military leader for an emergency, won a battle, then he returned to the Senate and kind of went back to plowing his fields, and then he kind of like selflessly, relinquished everything he had to save the Republic, and then it happened again, and he went from like being the a senator plowing his fields to being dictator again, and then when the crisis was over, he returned to, just living his life, being a farmer or whatever, being a senator. And so a bunch of Washington's military officers created this like secret fraternity in honor of Cincinnatus and George Washington for doing the same thing, because Washington famously kind of like stepped aside after his second term as president and was like, nope, I got to set the precedence of like 2-term limit. I did my job. I'm gonna go back to my farm fields. Like, job done. So his military officers out of respect for him kind of came up with this society, and it's kind of like it's almost like a hereditary thing where it's only like family members of the original people that are allowed to be part of it at this point.
Yeah.
And then so I thought it was pretty interesting, and I kind of like to talk about this whenever I can because I love ancient Rome.
Yeah, I do too. We have to do episodes on it, dude.
So some of the original members are obviously George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, Aaron Burr, the Marquis de Lafayette, John Paul Jones.
I saw that von Steuben guy was also in it.
Oh, von Steuben, yeah. Nathaniel Green. So just essentially, von Steuben, yeah. So a bunch of people,
essentially like a who's who of all of the
military generals.
Yeah.
Oh, Benjamin Talmadge. Okay, yeah, he was the spy master for Washington.
Dude, Turn is good. Turn Washington 5.
Yeah,
fucking good.
But yeah, so essentially, that's a pretty neat little thing, and I kind of like to throw that in. I was actually talking to someone who likes the podcast and listening to the episodes, and I kind of brought this up in a conversation, and I was like, oh, I need to make sure I talk about this.
Oh, dude, that and damn, what is that? Like History Channel, America: The Story of Us. That shit's good.
Never seen it in my life.
It's fucking good, dude. You gotta watch it.
Yeah, okay.
So like to close it out, I wanted to read a portion of Washington's farewell address. It's kind of a little chunky little paragraph, but I think it really like kind of summarizes just his presidency and like what he kind of wanted for the people, like all this kind of stuff. So it reads, the unity of government which constitutes you one people is also now dear to you. It is justly so, for it is a main pillar in the edifice of your real independence, the support of your tranquility at home, your peace abroad, of your safety, of your prosperity, of that very liberty which you so highly prize. But as it is easy to foresee that from different causes and from different quarters much pains will be taken, many artifices employed, to weaken in your minds the conviction of this truth, as this is the point in your political fortress against which the batteries of internal and external enemies will be most constantly and actively, though often covertly and insidiously directed. It is of infinite moment that you should properly estimate the immense value of your national union to your collective and individual happiness, that you should cherish a cordial, habitual, and immovable attachment to it, accustoming yourselves to think and speak of it as the palladium of your political safety and prosperity, watching for its preservation with jealous anxiety, discountenancing whatever may suggest even a suspicion that it can in any event be abandoned, and indignantly frowning upon the first dawning of every attempt to alienate any portion of our country from the rest, or to enfeeble the sacred ties which now link together the various parts. So essentially he's saying, like, look to the Union, like look to this, like, all the people that like value this thing that now exists that is the United States. You have to look to that union of the states as the ultimate symbol of what makes you prosperous, what makes you feel safe, what makes you happy. Now, like, all of that is possible because of the union, and you have to sustain through political infighting internally from external wars and things like that. You have to maintain your conviction and the union ultimately. And I just thought that was really cool, or kind of a way to like summarize his own like presidency. And I think that was kind of the point of him saying that in the farewell address, of like, just highlighting all these parts. You know what I mean?
That kind of goes back to what we talked about in the last episode, his like ability for perseverance.
Yeah, for sure.
So on that note, thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah.
This has been our 10th episode, which is a nice little milestone. So thanks to everyone who's been listening and supporting, and you know, hopefully leaving reviews on all the podcast websites for us. Really appreciate it. So just make sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook. Our YouTube is now up with all these episodes in video format. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening. Really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah. See you next time.